Alrighty, I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Good?
Wherever you need to be.
Perfect. And we already did the roll call for the previous meeting, so we're good there. We'll go right into the Pledge of Allegiance if you'd like to stand and join.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Holy cow.
That was good.
Someone's raising their kid right.
You didn't go fast enough, though.
Agenda approval. Anything from staff?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just wanted to note a couple items are on the dais for you. We did have updated minutes that came out earlier this week. I would note we did see a couple typos in there, so we did correct those names of spelling items related to folks' names. So we did get that corrected in there. And then just wanted to note there is an additional engagement letter for Baker Tilly. We had the discussion in the packet, but just the actual engagement letter has been added in. So besides that, those were the only changes from staff.
Perfect. Anything from council? I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented with a couple of clarifications from Jessica.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, commission representatives, we have Commissioner Brummond and Commissioner Strahler, either in person or?
Person.
There we go, perfect. And then open forum.
Perfect. Anyone wanting to speak on open forum, anyone in the public can come up to the dais, state your name and address for the record. Anyone joining us virtually can press *9 if you're joining us on a phone. Otherwise, click reactions and then raise your hand if you're joining us on a tablet or other smart device. At this time, Mayor, no one is raising their hand virtually, and no one's come up to the podium, so I
Okay,
can
that
close
works.
open forum.
Then we'll go right into we have 3 presentations today. And so we'll
Yes, we
get
do.
started with the first 2.
We have 2 swearing-ins for the police department, and Michelle is going to go ahead and do that. First will be Police Officer Jacob Anderson.
The mayor had a little introduction.
Oh, and the mayor has an introduction.
Yeah. So Officer Jacob Anderson started his career at the Corcoran Police Department as a CSO, handling non-priority calls for service, assisting with department operations and other duties as assigned. As a full-time officer position opened up, Jacob applied and was hired on. Before coming to the Corcoran Police Department, Jacob worked for Valvoline Instant Oil Change while going to school for law enforcement. At this time, he also volunteered as a police reserve officer for the City of Osseo Police Department. Jacob hopes to continue making a difference in this community we share.
And with that, Jacob, if you want to come up, and Michelle will read the oath to you.
I, Jacob Anderson, do solemnly swear
I, Jacob Anderson, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of police officer within and for the City of Corcoran
of police officer within and for the City of Corcoran
and the State of Minnesota.
and the State of Minnesota.
On my honor, I will never betray my badge,
On my honor, I will never betray my badge,
my integrity, my character, or the public trust.
my integrity, my character, or the public trust.
I will always have the courage to hold
I will always have the courage to hold
myself and others accountable for our actions.
myself and others accountable for our actions.
I will always uphold the Constitution,
I will always uphold the Constitution,
my community, and the agency I serve,
my community, and the agency I serve.
so help me God.
So help me God. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you.
Here.
Congratulations.
we do.
For Corey,
Perfect.
Sergeant Andrus.
Yep. Sergeant Corey Andrus came to the Corcoran Police Department from Wright County Sheriff's Office Criminal Investigations, where he was a detective. Before that, he was a member of the emergency response team, a school resource officer, and a patrol officer. Before joining the Wright County Sheriff's Office, Corey was working for the Minneapolis Police Department as a police officer. Corey's passion has always been working with and for the community. Corey is excited to become part of Corcoran's community-oriented policing while protecting and servicing the public.
I, Corey Andrus,
I, Corey Andrus,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
the duties of sergeant
the duties of sergeant
within and for the city of Corcoran
within and for the city of Corcoran
and the state of Minnesota.
and the state of Minnesota.
On my honor,
On my honor,
I will never betray my badge,
I will never betray my badge,
my integrity,
my integrity,
my character, or the public trust.
my character, or the public trust.
I will always have the courage to hold
I will always have the courage to hold
myself and others accountable for our actions.
myself and others accountable for our actions.
I will always uphold
I will always uphold
the Constitution,
the Constitution,
my community,
my community,
and the agency I serve,
and the agency I serve,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
One, two, three. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
Can I just say something real quick?
Sure. Give him
Thank you guys, every one of you. We've got a sheriff representative here also, but thank you for what you do. We are the luckiest community in the state of Minnesota to have each and every one of you guys. I think I've said that all to you guys, but I want to say it this way also. Thank you, everything you do for us, very much.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Third.
Fourth.
Vote needed.
We'll give him a minute to dial out. We'll just do another 30 seconds here or so, and then we'll go into the presentation from Ideal Energies.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Mayor and Council. We received a request from Ideal Energies to present a proposal to the City Council. And so who we have today is Scott Bosacker and Braden Salium? Solom, oh, so close. To present the proposal that they'd be looking at, and just getting the feedback.
Sounds good.
Yeah. I just want to start off by saying it's really nice to be in person at one of these things. For the past 2 years, it's just been on Zoom, so it's nice. So yeah, my name is Braden Solom. I work with Ideal Energies. We are a commercial solar developer based in Minneapolis. And we are here to pitch some on-site solar for your public works building. You can go to the next slide. So a little bit about us. We were founded in 2010 around the first incentive programs that were created in the state for commercial solar. And since then, we've grown quite a bit. I think when Scott and I joined, there was 4 of us. Now we're over 40. But yeah, we've done over 400 commercial systems now across the state. We've got a bunch under construction. We do about half our work in the public sector and half our work in the private sector. So we've done, I think it's like 140 plus schools across 32 districts. We've done quite a few cities. We've done some counties as well. And so what we're going to be talking about today is, well, actually a little bit more about us. So we are a completely vertically integrated company. So we are the developers. We handle all of the construction from electrical engineering, structural engineering, design, all the way through permitting, construction, everything like that. And we are also a finance company as well. So we finance our projects to the public sector using our own balance sheet and essentially not having third-party financing organizations in the middle helps kind of pass savings on to you guys. So this next slide here, it is about, those are our city customers. But what I want to talk to you a little bit about is what we're talking about today. So on-site rooftop solar. These are solar panels that are mounted on a rooftop of your public works building. This is an example that we did for Orono Public Schools. The panels sit on the rooftop with very minimal penetrations, and with how tall your building is, I don't think there'd be a single penetration on the rooftop, so it's ballasted. Sits about 4 to 6 pounds per square feet, and we have our structural engineers come in, get full stamped drawings of the building to make sure that it can withstand the additional load of the solar array sitting on the rooftop. And we're also able to do that in a way that maintains any existing roof warranties you might have on your public works building through the construction of the project. And what these panels are doing is they're creating DC electricity, like a battery. That DC electricity then flows off of the building onto the side of the building where we have inverters mounted. And inverters take that DC electricity, convert it into AC electricity, so 480 volt commercial electricity that just flows directly into the building switchgear. So every kilowatt hour that this solar array is producing is a kilowatt hour that you're no longer buying from Xcel Energy. So it's directly offsetting utility expense. Another thing that happens is a new meter gets put on your building. So currently every building has a meter that can spin in one direction. You can pull energy from the grid. And they put in what's called a bidirectional meter, which can send energy back to the grid. So if the building's closed on a Sunday in the middle of the day and it's summer and it's just firing on the rooftop, you're just sending electricity back onto the grid. It's spinning your meter backwards. So then you're just generating credits that when you, in the nighttime when it's not running, it just starts spinning the other way again. There's also some additional incentives from the utility that get added into the energy savings. So you're just offsetting kilowatt hours, but there's also something called the PV demand credit rider that exists through Xcel. And what it is when you take a big building's load off of the grid and off their transformers, Xcel saves a bunch of money by not like line losses, not having to have as much reserve energy sitting on the lines for the building to pull, and things like that. So that savings get passed through into your energy bill as well. So you're offsetting electrical expense and you're getting an incentive from the utility. And then I'll get into what it means financially here. But here's another list of our city and county customers, just to kind of take a look. I don't know if you guys know anybody there. But the next picture here is our preliminary layout of the Public Works building. So this building can fit an 80 kilowatt system, which is a pretty decent size for a solar array. We're not going to be offsetting the entire bill from the building just because we're limited by the real estate on the rooftop. But what it does do is, I like to think about it like a glorified HVAC unit that's sitting there, kind of like a generator that's running into the building when the sun is out and the fuel is free. So that's kind of a way to think about a solar array. So the next step here is our solar program, so how it works financially. It's quite simple. A solar array has a purchase price, and that's the cost to install it. But what the city ends up paying is not the full purchase price, because through our financial model, we're able to monetize tax benefits that you as a non-taxable entity wouldn't normally be able to use. So there's a purchase price reduced by a bit by tax benefits, and then there's a certain amount left over that we need to collect to pay for the system. And the way it works is through something called a power purchase agreement. So under our model, the city is fee title owner to the solar array day one. We pay for it up front, and then the only financial obligation that the city has to the solar array is to purchase the energy that is produced by it at a discount. We set that up to be 20% less than what you're currently paying your utility, and we do that for 20 years. And then after year 20, all the energy that comes from the system is free. We operate and maintain the system for the full 20 years. We do have an optional operations and maintenance contract that you can enter into following the end of that power purchase period. And panels themselves, to give you an idea of a lifetime of a system like this, so there's 20 years where you're getting a discount on your energy. And then after that, with free energy through the remaining life of it, which is about 35 to 40 years in the solar industry. The panels actually carry a 25-year warranty, and that warranty states that at year 25, the solar array will still be producing 80% of its original capacity. So they degrade at about 0.5% per year. So the lifespan on these is very long. There's no moving parts. Operations and maintenance is quite simple. We have a program where we can actually view from our end when we're operating and maintaining it. We can see every single panel on the rooftop generating electricity. So we're able to calculate, one, your savings down to the penny, which is great for a project like this to be able to track actually how much you're saving as a city. And two, we're able to operate and maintain it from afar. So we come out multiple times per year to check out the array and everything. But what we're able to do is if one panel on your rooftop is not producing energy, it gets flagged on our end, and we create an O&M service ticket and come out and fix it. So the next slide here is the project cash flow. So this system, using Excel's current electricity rates, will save the city about $11,346 in the first year. So that's money that you would no longer be paying to Excel. So you'll see your Excel bill reduced by that amount. And then since you are fee title owner to the system, we lease the equipment and the space back from you. We have a nominal amount that we pay for that. For rent, it's $100 a year. So if you take your utility bill savings plus your rent revenue, you've got your total revenue of the system of $11,446 in year one. You'll see that the energy savings go up over time. That's just due to the rise in Xcel Energy's utility rates. We use a 20-year average of 3.5%, so that's the previous 20 years. To give you some perspective on that, Xcel just got approved for a 14.2% interim rate increase. So it's a little higher than 3.5%, which is what we're modeling, but that's we're just trying to be conservative in our cash flow documents here. So you've got your total customer revenue, and then you see that energy payment to Ideal. That is you buying the energy that's produced by the system that's equal to 20% less than what you're saving. So day one, you're saving money. And then we do have an expense built in there for insurance on the system of $300 a year. That escalates over time. What I'm learning working in the public sector, like across all schools and cities, is that most insurance companies don't actually charge any additional amount to add a solar array to your building coverage. They view it like a glorified HVAC unit or just a building improvement. So that $300 is in there, but it's probably not what you'll be charged. So you just take your total revenue, $11,446 minus your expense, and you have your cash flow. So year one, the system saves the city is at $2,069. And then you see that savings going up over time as utility rates rise. And at year 20, you can see the cutoff where you're no longer making an energy payment. Your savings jump to $17,689. And that continues rising over the life of it. And this system, over its full expected lifespan, will save the city around $500,000. The next slide. So this is actually this is the energy modeling software that I was talking about. We're able to monitor the system. It's called SolarEdge. It comes so the inverters on the building are internet connected. So it's essentially just a public web page where you can log in and see exactly how much your system is producing at any given time. It's live. It's kind of cool because if like clouds come over, you can see the production dip and things like that. But another great, so this is a great way, a lot of cities and schools that we do will put this like on their city web pages because it can be embedded into a website or just a link where you can show your public that you're taking steps towards clean energy. It also has things like environmental benefits on the bottom right. And then you're also able to track your energy year over year, so you can kind of see year over year performance as the solar array is producing. And then another great reason I really like this is because it tracks your energy production exactly. So unlike a lot of different energy efficiency improvements that you can take in your buildings, like if you put LED lights in the building, for example, you'll see that your energy bill is reduced, but you don't know how much of it comes from the switch to LED or just someone didn't turn the lights on one day. The nice thing about this program is you can come in and say, I've produced X amount of kilowatt hours today, and you just multiply that by the rate that you pay for electricity, and you've got your energy savings down to the penny. So these are very auditable and really easy to track how the city is doing. We have a lot of experience monitoring these systems, operating and maintaining them, and we have a lot of happy customers. So next steps, I think this is a little dated at this point, but it's quite simple working with us since we do every single piece of the program along the way. We would just negotiate contracts with the city. I think Q2 is probably a little, that's not going to happen. We're probably looking towards Q2, Q3 at this point for contracts with the city. The next thing that we do is we do solar engineering. So we have our project managers come out with structural engineers and electrical engineers to look at the building site, make sure that the building can take the additional load of the solar and the rooftop, and then we fully engineer it electrically and apply for interconnection with Xcel Energy. Once we have interconnection approval, it goes right into construction. We do anticipate that the system would be constructed this year, just towards the late end of 2022 before the snow falls. And with that, that's all I've got. It's quite simple. And then this is, I actually put this at the end here so you can kind of see the way the energy flows on the building. But like I said, you've got DC electricity flowing off the rooftop into those inverters, which flows directly into your building switchgear. And another thing I didn't mention is that you are still completely interconnected to the grid. So you still have a utility bill from Xcel. Another question I get a lot is, if the grid goes down, does this continue to power the building? The answer to that is no. The inverters have something called anti-islanding technology in them. And the reason for that is, the reason they turn off is because they don't want energy flowing on to the power lines when there are linemen out there fixing it. So it's essentially just like plugging a generator into your house, except the fuel is free and it turns on when the sun is out. So that's all I got. Any questions?
Questions for the applicant?
How is this affected by Xcel not being our utility? I think we're at Hennepin at Public Works.
No, they-
Is that
We do
Xcel?
actually have.
weirdly is
some
Xcel
right
out there.
on it.
Oh, okay.
Or some Xcel, this would
Yeah.
be one of our few sites
Okay.
within the community that is Xcel, so.
Very good.
Question, and I learned a lot at the planning commission on Thursday related to the actual arrays or the cells and such. As time goes on, the improvement in the cells or arrays are continually getting better and such. This is a moment in time, we get those panels and however they're developed at the time of installation. There's no upgrading to newer panels or anything unless we were to so choose. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so panels are plug and play. These are about 20% efficient,
Okay,
which is very high in the solar industry. They're monocrystalline cells. And so they're about as high as efficiency as you can for commercial panels, the ones that we use. They come from Jacksonville, Florida. And since they're plug and play, you can essentially swap out if the city ever did, say 15, 20 years down the line or 30 years down the line. just wanna
uses a
put
newer
new panels on,
technology.
You can literally just snap them in.
Got it. Thank you.
Do you, when you say we finance through you, I thought we didn't have any, like, if we don't have any charges, why would we need to finance through anybody?
So it's cash flow positive from day one, the transaction is, but we still need to get paid for the installation of the system. So the way we do that is we separate the amount that needs to get paid for after tax benefits into those energy payments. Those energy payments are 20% less than what you're saving. So you're never out any money. You're actually 20% up on your energy bill, day one.
Say that again.
So we pay for the whole system. Say it's $100,000, it's just an example. We get a little bit from tax benefits. Let's say it's 20%. So
Yeah.
there'd be $80,000 left that need to get paid for on that system. And instead of just charging the city the $80,000, we spread those payments out as buying the energy over time. So over the 20 years, we would collect that money. And we set those payments up to be less than what you're saving always.
Or what we're spending.
Yes, essentially. Yeah, the payments are less than the value of the energy coming from the array.
So what rates do you use then for the price of our,
So we use Excel's current rates.
but what if they change?
So we model that in. So the energy payments rise at our modeled rate of 3.5% per year. So when Excel does something like raise the rates 14.2%,
Yeah,
like they did this year, you don't pay 14.2% more, you pay 3.5% more.
so whatever we sign up for, we get as a rate from
Yeah.
here to the end of time.
Yep. So no matter how much they raise rates, your payments just rise at 3.5%.
Do you know, the warranty, what does it cover?
So the warranty covers energy production. So at year 25, they're rated to still be producing 80% of their original capacity. Panels have a 12-year workmanship warranty.
Okay,
Inverters have a 12-year warranty. And then there's something called an optimizer, which is on the back of every panel that carries a 25-year warranty. So really what we're doing when we do operations and maintenance is we're just coming out and servicing warranties. We've got
Do we-
product in stock at our warehouses, we're just.
do we pay
switching
for
it
that?
out. So we have, it's pretty cheap since all we're doing is just time and materials coming out and swapping out parts. So to give you an example, like a little optimizer on the back of the panel.
Yeah.
I think we charge $60 to replace one of those. I think in the history of our company, the amount of panels that we've had to do a warranty claim on is extremely low. We put hundreds of thousands of panels out there. And it's probably less than 100 that we've actually
Yeah.
come out and replaced. Inverters.
So is the
we've had
warranty
originals.
through you?
No, it's through the manufacturers. So we're just servicing manufacturer warranties.
Yeah.
Coming out and fixing things.
So the panel company, the producers of the panel support the warranty?
Yes.
And you do the warranty work?
Yep.
What if you go out of business?
Then you would essentially, since our company is the long-term holder of this agreement, this power purchase agreement,
Yeah,
we have to be there for all 20 years to operate and maintain it. If we went out of business, whoever bought that asset, which would be that long-term power purchase agreement, would be contractually obligated to take over operations and maintenance for the city. But I don't see us going out of business anymore.
well, no one ever does.
Yeah.
Let's count the number of solar companies that have went out of business in the last 10 years. Are you prepared to share your company's financial position? And audited financial statements?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And then, how much do the solar panels weigh?
I think a single panel is around 50 pounds.
And how many will we have up on the roof?
So this is 80 kilowatts divided by, 80,000 divided by 410. How many is that?
Say again?
It's 80,000 kilowatts, so 80,000 divided by 410. Is it
195.
195.
195 panels.
You had said that the weight is somewhere between 6 and 8 pounds per square feet?
Yeah, depending on just the kind of the layout of the system, it's anywhere between like 4, 8 on the high end. But we structurally engineer it so the building can handle it. And then essentially, it's weighed down by ballast blocks, like a landscaper block.
So no penetration, I think you said that originally,
Yeah.
it's weighed by ballast, okay?
Yeah, the only time we ever see penetrations is when it's over a 3-story building, and sometimes the panels on the very ends of the array will be required to be adhered, but this is a pretty low building, I don't anticipate that.
Would you consider not transferring ownership to us?
Yeah, so typically the way these are done is a third party owns the system, but then it works exactly the same way. We designed this program, originally we did this with the Minneapolis Public School District and Richfield Public Schools when we first developed this financial model, and everybody kind of said they want to own it. I could talk to our CEO, I'm not sure. I don't think it would be too much different. The project would work exactly the same way.
Do you know the increase in efficiency in solar panels on average per year?
Yeah, so typically it's around 2 to 5 watts of output. So like if we're doing a 410 watt panel, next year you would anticipate that someone would be offering like a 410 or a 415.
So what's today?
Well, this is a 410 watt panel that we spec this project out with.
Yeah,
And so next year or the year after, it'll probably be somewhere in the realm of like a 415 watt panel, just as efficiency goes up slightly.
so like 2% a
Yeah.
year.
What are these utility savings modeled off of?
So we actually have, and I can provide this for any of you guys, we have a more detailed cash flow document that gets like extremely into the weeds on the map. But essentially your energy savings are broken down into 3 categories. So when you're in a commercial building, you pay for kilowatt hours from the utility, and then you pay for demand, which is essentially how fast you're pulling energy from the grid. So that's the way a commercial utility bill works. So kilowatt hours is just kilowatt hours created by offsetting direct utility expense. These save you on your demand, because in a city building like this, typically you're reaching your peak energy use during the day, in the middle of the day. That's when the solar array is producing at its most. And then third, you get an extra credit from Xcel Energy, and that's this PV demand credit rider for taking your load off the grid during their peak period. So they pay about 7 cents.
So this year one number of 11,346 doesn't correlate exactly to what we're paying currently for utilities.
It's actually slightly higher because they pay you that extra credit, that PV demand credit. So you probably pay somewhere in the realm of like 11 or 12 cents. The value of solar is closer to 13 or 14, just because they're paying you additional amounts for taking their load off. So they actually pay you about 7 cents.
So if I went to staff though and said, do we have actually utility bills of $11,000 out there per year?
You'd probably have more than that, because this is just the value of the solar. It's not the value of what you're currently paying your utility. But it's modeled off Xcel's rates exactly for their commercial rates. And then what they would pay in terms of the credit as well. I can show you, I've actually got the cash flow document here.
So, I mean, we're basically saying, you're coming to us and saying, sign up for this for free, you're gonna get a 20% savings on your energy costs.
20% savings for the energy that's produced by the system. Not in total, it's just,
Not in total.
but yes.
So how does this equate to our total utility bills now out there?
So essentially, you would be paying, you still would be paying that 11,000 to the utility. It's just, that would be coming from the solar rate now. I don't have your utility bill on me, but I can tell you, I can follow up with you guys exactly what the percentage of offset this would be for that building in particular.
Just looking in the claims packet, it does look like the Public Works building bill is listed in there right now for Xcel Energy, and it's for the most recent month, $1,357.
Oh, so this would actually be pretty close to fully offsetting that building's
I
utility.
think we have the bill history, and we backed it down. We could actually use a little more space on the roof, but your usage at that building over the past 2 years wasn't enough enough to maximize the roof space, because what we don't want to do is over supply panels on the roof to where it doesn't financially make sense for you.
Yeah, so what we would do is get right up to the point where it's 100% of your energy use in a year, because there's something called net metering. That's Excel spinning the meter backwards. If you produce on a yearly basis, they look at it annually, if you produce more than 100% of what your building consumed, everything over 100%, they buy back at wholesale rates, which is fractions of what the value would be, as long as you're just directly offsetting utility expense.
So let me ask you a simplistic question, don't take offense to this, but if somebody walked up and knocked on my door and said, I want to stick a bunch of panels on your roof and I'm going to save you 20%, my first question is, what the hell's in it for you?
Yeah, so we get paid, so there's a purchase price on the system that we recover over time. So we get paid from the tax benefits that come from it, so we operate, our company's the managing director of the tax equity fund underneath the public traded bank. And so when we install a solar array, they get a tax credit and they put some money towards the project in return. And they take kind of a shave off the top. So we get a chunk of money from them, and then we collect your power payments over time. And that's how we make our purchase price with our margin.
And is this all part of Excel's green energy mandate?
No, so actually we're operating outside of that. So when Excel puts solar in, they do it for what's called a renewable energy credit. So every megawatt hour produced by it generates one REC. And those systems count towards their mandates to have a certain amount of solar by like 2030, 2050. This is completely outside of that because the city is the sole owner of the array and the renewable energy credits. So you maintain the legal right to say, this is our solar energy, we are offsetting this with our solar energy. Excel basically has no rights to it at all.
So, and then, what about when we hit the 40-year life mark and we have to decommission this thing, who bears the cost of that? And what is the anticipated cost of that?
So currently, solar equipment, we recycle under just electrical recycling through, I think, dynamic life cycle innovations. Like if we have panels that are damaged in shipping or something, I think we pay 30 cents a pound. But really what it comes down to is the solar market is old enough to be like 35, 40 years old with mature solar arrays that are out there. So the first big solar powered solar arrays are kind of starting to come offline at the end of their lifespan. And what's developing in the industry, and what the industry is pretty excited about, is this recycling market, where a bunch of big companies are now throwing a bunch of money into developing a way to recycle the panels, because panels are glass, silicon, aluminum, there's some silver, and there's a 3M rubber back sheet. That's about it. So there is.
And heavy metals.
No, not in these
that's the problem.
solar arrays. There's two types of panels. There's thin film solar, which
Yeah.
is used on a utility scale, and this is PV crystalline solar. Thin film solar has things like cadmium telluride in it,
Mhm.
which are toxic. These do not.
They don't have any of that?
Nope. But what I was saying was essentially there is an inherent value to all of the parts of a solar array, and that the industry is just kind of watching that to see as it develops, because people are anticipating that not only will your panels still be at 80%, or I mean 60%, sorry, efficiency of where they were at the beginning, they'll still be working. There might be some inherent value to that, but if you want, I can follow up with you. I've got a really nice document that the U.S. Department of Energy did on this, that kind of talked about what the future is for solar decommissioning. And yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Don't we have a solar moratorium in our town?
We did related to community solar. This would be accessory solar related to buildings. So this we'd have to go through the permitting process and all of.
So we would, as a city, do what we've already told our
We've
community they can't do.
We've said no community solar gardens, but we do allow rooftop solar.
You still allow rooftop.
And
Is this
accessory.
bigger
solar.
than we would allow on our own rooftops, on our own house?
That is a great question. review that with Kendra if that's something that we'd want to move forward on. I don't know the answer to that question. We didn't want to, unless we knew it was something that we wanted to move forward with, without understanding what the next steps would be really if it's something we want to move forward with staff resources, it's getting your buy-in first.
What does Maggie say?
You know what, we have not spent a lot of time looking at this with Maggie. Again, we really wanted to get a feel from council if this is something that we wanted to look at. It's just really getting some buy-in from council before we spend resources on it.
Okay.
Is there a size where this is not a doable project for you?
Typically, we cut off at around 20 to 40 kilowatts. That's about the smallest we do. So we do like, for example, like City of Elk New Market, we just did their City Hall and Police Station. I think those were 40 kilowatt projects. And we've done projects as small as 20 on like fire stations and things like that. But yeah, that's about our lowest end, which is about, I mean, a 20 kilowatt system would be like 2 times the size of like a larger residential installation.
Are we confident we'll have the same Public Works building in 40 years or 20 years?
That's a good question.
That's a great question. I think that we will, as we continue to grow, it may, depending on our campus planning, whether it still remains at that location or is in another location, that's somewhat to be determined. But in terms of the size and the scope of the building, it likely would increase.
Yeah, whether it's
Kevin might be able
an
to.
expansion or another building in the facility, or whether it's another site, or whether lots of options.
It'll probably be there in some form. Is that safe?
Yeah, I don't think don't tear it down or anything like that unless it was, just due to the location in the city. I don't know on a very high level if that would be appealing for a tear down type scenario.
Unless a tornado comes through, then.
Or, something like that.
We are insured.
Other
so.
insurance. I don't have any more questions, but I'm prepared to have a discussion with council.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you guys have other questions?
I don't have any questions at this time. I
Yeah.
don't think I'd be inclined to say yes today,
Right.
but if you want to have a discussion.
I don't know. It seems like I'll save you $2,000 a year for the next 20 years. And then after that, that's when you have the bulk of any value at all to the town. So like, if something happens, some slight adjustment to the model, or something that's not covered by a warranty, or one of these things falls down onto a truck and we even have to have a dent fixed, or like, it's so tight on saving $2,000 a year
Right.
that, like, I wouldn't do this in my own house to save $2,000, and we're expected to make a decision for the public to put stuff on a building that we won't even allow people to do. If we have a moratorium on solar, I think it's kind of silly. $2,000, $500,000, but all of it is 20 years from now. If we present valued that, it's like a set of tires. It's crazy to go through all this bother for making some statement. I'd fight it. I'd be against it. I think it's a bad idea.
I think I agree with you on a lot of that. I think there's a lot of, like you said, it's a very tight window there that over a long period of time, that a lot could go wrong and change the calculus on all of this, and that it very easily is not saving us money even in the 20 to 40 year range.
Well, if you look at the table, and I really want to get Maggie's take on it before I decide one way or the other. But year 2, the savings is 4,000. Year 3, it's 6. Year 4, it's 8. So it does seem to escalate before you get to year 20.
Wait, those are cumulative.
Is that cumulative?
Cumulative.
Oh, you're right,
It's
sorry, wrong
$2,000 a
column.
year for
But it
like
does
20
escalate-
years.
It does escalate over time, just as rates go up.
What's Maggie gonna say?
I don't know, that's what I want to ask her. I mean, if Excel increases rates at 8% a year instead of 3.5, we're still only paying 3.5, right?
Yep.
So presumably you have a fairly conservative estimate
Yeah,
here.
it's like a hedge against rising rates.
Yeah. So if I could get a guarantee that my energy would only go up by 4% for nothing, you know, it's worth looking at.
What's the unknown? For nothing is in quote, air quotes.
Yeah.
Some stuff is warranted for a little bit. It only is good if they're around. It's only good if the solar panel company is around and in business. Like, all that's a crapshoot. And if the efficiencies of solar panels goes up 2% a year, you can redo this project in 2 years. You can redo it in 4 years. There's no time. We'll end up with junky old panels in 10 years. And have to figure out what we do with 20-year-old panels in 20 years. And we're banking on that all to come through and be true. And the only time that we get a payoff is in 20 years. That seems crazy to me. I don't think Maggie will be able to tell us anything different, but I guess I'm fine with having her speak about it. We can, I mean, it's an Excel spreadsheet.
I'm for looking at it. John brings up the point of the moratorium, but again, that's related to, on solar fields. We need to know and understand how many we can put on top of this building and it's conducive, or it's exact same thing as onto a residential building too. We need to know and understand that. And while it might seem a little crazy, there's got to be something to it with the list of customers that
Yeah.
that they have shown us. There has to be something there, so I think some conversations with, my goodness, La Crescent, I mean, the Richfields, all of these things, is it working for them? How long, I guess if I can ask that question, how long have these folks been customers?
So Richfield has been, I think they might be our oldest city customer. Shoreview, I think we did in like 2017.
Okay,
Roseville's probably 2 years old now. Part of the reason why some of them are newer is because that program where Excel pays you for taking their load off the grid, that's only about 3 years old.
Okay.
So before that, we were relying on incentive programs, and that was from our smaller arrays. So the ability for larger scale stuff is pretty new.
your existence in this industry started when?
2010.
Okay.
And we're probably, I think, probably one of the 2 oldest commercial solar companies in the state. It's pretty new.
Myself, I'm all about renewing and reusable and all of that stuff. I'm not as skeptical as I used to be. There's something to it. I'm worried about electric automobiles, all of those things, and where everything is gonna go from that point, but I think we're in the experimental phase on efficiencies, costs, all of these things. But I think we've got to chew on it a lot longer.
Gotcha.
I would also just suggest talking to some of those cities. Like, we do take people, like, Roseville loves giving tours, because they've got a roof that you can walk out of the door on. So you can get your hands on them, see them, kind of see all the parts.
I was gonna say, could you maybe send staff some more details on what you've done in some of these cities? So, like Rogers in particular, since they're one of our neighbors.
Yeah.
Maple Grove would be great, Shoreview would be great. Just so we can,
Finished a new project on Otsiko's new water treatment plant.
gotcha. Yeah, any details like that, I'd love to take a look at.
Definitely.
Perfect. And so we'll maybe have Maggie weigh in on this at the next, or at a future meeting.
Well, what are we gonna ask Maggie for?
I would like to see, kind of like what we talked about on the water system, sort of a sensitivity analysis based upon what utility rates would do based on, past 5 years, what have we seen from Excel? How conservative are these estimates? And if we see something similar going forward, or a higher level going forward, does the savings become more significant within that 20-year period where you're still writing checks to?
Basically, you want her to analyze their data, because, I mean, that's
Vet the
what
model.
you just, yeah.
And I've got, like I said, I've got a more detailed document that breaks out this into exactly how it's calculated. And like, it's got kind of diagrams, just how the agreements work and things like that. So we can provide that to you guys.
Yeah.
So I'll give you that. I've got, you want to see some details on some cities that we've done
Yeah.
with the projects that we did there.
That'd be great.
And get you some end-of-life stuff on the recycling the panels.
Yeah, I think I'd like to see Maggie run like numbers of what we would have saved had we started this day one with the Public Works building. And use old utility bill information.
Yeah.
Good point.
Do you
We're looking
have,
at your review back to 2017. What have they actually saved since that time?
do you have specs on the panels?
I think what we'll do is, we typically just create a G drive folder for our customers. It's got all of your panel, inverters, everything, spec sheets, warranty information. Put the presentation in there, cash flow documents, and some other stuff. We'll just get that shared with the city.
Great.
And one other thing from the group, as you talked about, Counselor Bottoма, whether or not what's allowed under code, city code would be something, would probably be the other piece that we'd want to just make sure that we understand what
Right.
our building would be allowed.
So, just for the council, will everybody who has an idea that wants to sell us something that'll save us $3,000 a year get time in front of us from here on out? Like, is that how it works? I'm serious. Even his numbers are $2,000 a year in savings. We're gonna have staff do a bunch of calculus on a saving of $2,000 a year? Like, is that a good use of time?
The calculation aspect, I think, is different than the presentation aspect, right? Because we have people come in here and say they're gonna run for US representative and come up and talk for 5 minutes too, and they're not giving us anything,
I understand that, but
so.
we have a business, somebody wants to go in business with the city. And what they want to do is, we're in business with them then, once we enter this agreement, and their pitch is that we save $2,000 or $3,000 a year. Does everybody who wants to go in business with the city that might save us $2,000 or $3,000 a year get to come and make the presentation and spend time analyzing their proposal?
Well, I guess the question is, how much we would spend on analyzing is a better question
How
for
much
council.
does the staff have the time to dig into this a little deeper?
Well, I-
Because the pop vendor could come in and say, I want to.
That's what I'm saying, like, do they get to,
Can
I mean,
too.
what's the threshold? If they say $3,000 a year, we're gonna go for it?
Well, he's saying $500,000 over the life of the project. That's what he's saying.
I know, but if, in the
Yeah, I
real
know.
world, you don't analyze cash flows 20 years out. You don't if we present valued 17,000 in the year 2047, it's like 2,000 in today's, with inflation of whatever amount you want to use for. Projects in the real world do not use cash, they don't, if you present valued 29,000 in 2064,
Yeah.
how much you think 29,000 in 2064 is worth today?
Yeah, maybe the case is that this array is not big enough to give us a benefit it's not worth our time. I think that's what you're getting at.
Yeah, we're analyzing a project that saves the city $2,000 a year and might make the city 29, look at the cash flows 20, 40 years out. Even if these are true.
Yeah, it's not 10% of our utility bill out there. We're not saving 10%, right? On that facility.
And we're taking the chance that all of this actually comes exactly to fruition.
That's the big part for me, yeah.
So even if these are absolutely correct, and Maggie says these are absolutely correct, I would make the argument that saving $2,000 a year is totally not worth putting solar panels on
At the risk.
public works. We have these things up on our roof that who knows what could go wrong. They cover some things, and they're not even warranted out to the point where we supposedly get $17,000 a year. The warranty for some parts are up in 12 years. It's a giant risk with almost no return.
I think if you look at our list of cities, most of them have put an extra value on the sustainability piece because they have a lot of residents that do care about that and are hoping that.
But we're not a socially agenda city council.
I understand that.
We have a lot of them come in that don't want to pay their recycling.
I know, I mean, I'm just saying that there's a value there to that, where there, and this package is to try to help people get into that without having to pay capital outlay and bond money or anything to be able to put one of these up there. And this building is your only real option, because Bright Hampton has 0 programs to make this make sense. So this is your one building, and it's a newer building, which is a perfect fit, flat roof, it's out of sight. You wouldn't even see these things about this high off the top, so you don't even see it from the road if you don't want to see it. So.
It's sort of like we have a limited government here. Do for people things that they can't do for themselves, or projects that only the collective can do, like roads and garbage and stuff. And they're, like the city of Edina outlawed plastic bags at the grocery store for whatever reason 5 years ago. And that's their choice. They're an activist organization hoping to make social statements with their policy. Historically speaking, and I'd be totally against this, our city government is more on the, we're providing services to our citizens, not making some statement or not doing things that give us some social credit or whatever you want to call it. It's not what we do here. So going green or whatever, you do it at your house, I actually do it at my house, but it's not my idea of what a government should do is not take some risky chance on a new policy that in theory saves us $2,000 a year just to make some sort of statement that we have panels on our roof.
I would agree. I don't see value with the posture or the pose around green. I think it needs to make financial sense. I feel like the model is extremely conservative, and I'm wondering what we see if you make it realistic to the last 5 to 10 years of rate increases. Does it actually become worthwhile at that point? Because I think if it does, it's worth engaging in.
What's the number?
I don't know, we should decide that. More than 2,000.
Well, what is it? We don't do it because the numbers are never going to be big enough. And all of the money you get is in like year 20 to 40, which real world, you don't do projects with a turnaround in that far out. Even if it's $8,000 a year, I still would say it's not worth it.
I would say if there's a net present value of, say, $250K.
There won't be. If that's $250K, we'd have a discussion. What do you use for rate?
I don't know.
Present value rate. Got to use
Say the bond rate,
which
what are we
bond?
paying?
Our bond rate? Our bond rate?
Cost of capital, right? That's what you use.
You assume cost of capital, you'd want to use a private cost of capital, not a public cost of capital.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah.
Kevin, your thoughts on putting solar on top of the Public Works building?
We haven't done our due diligence. I'm not experienced in it, so I would
Got it.
just have to reserve, we'd have to engage in a due diligence period. If you guys did want to move forward, would be my recommendation, where we'd go meet with other facility managers and understand the system more. I know one of the big things when we were initially approached was, what does it do to your warranty? We'd want to talk to our roof warranty person, because, there's potential difference of opinion on what that is. So we really just want to vet the project. I guess that's what I would see as next steps if there was interest.
There's a lot more to this than just the financial side that's got to be done, and we're talking many hours of staff time to do this.
And that's why we really wanted to bring it forward. It was something that the council wanted us to focus on.
I'll use my own example of geothermal to heat and cool my home. It was an 8-year return on the investment to do it, which just seemed too long for me, so I'm status quo out there in the country, so.
Well, these savings, you're not gonna, we're probably talking 3 years to recoup our staff time.
Yeah.
I think, well, I guess I don't know. I think we're maybe leaning towards a no, at least for now, but certainly feel free to send those additional documents forward, and, we can always take a look as a council, and if something strikes us where we want to take another look at it or review it or bring it up at another meeting, we can do so at that point.
Sounds good.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. Consent agenda consisting of items 7A through 7H. If I can find the right page. Oops, not knock speakers over. Does anyone want to pull anything?
7D, please.
7D. Okay, anything else? I'll pull 7H. We got 7D and 7H. Anything else? I'll entertain a motion to approve consent agenda items 7A, B, C, E, F, and G.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, 7D, Alan?
So can staff give a little bit more background into this? Tonight at a work session was the first time we saw a rough number about an alternative site. What exactly are we doing with this $5,000?
It would really be to engage that landowner, figure out what the site would lay out, what that site potentially would lay out, what maybe a potential cost is, get an appraisal of the value of that property, and just engage the existing landowner and on the viability of what a potential agreement might be.
So it would probably be things up to the point of actually the council making a decision to move forward with an agreement?
It would be positioning ourselves to refine some of the numbers you saw earlier today in terms of land price, really, and whatever associated deal was in a land acquisition process.
Okay. But in no means it's an indication that we would move forward with the purchase.
No, I would say it would help us define what that decision is, so it would be a refinement of the numbers, either up or down from what we projected, and then that would be evaluated in a future decision. It wouldn't be signing a purchase agreement that would be brought back. It would be just helping us get to a point where we can have a potential, I guess, handshake deal, or wherever that goes. We don't know at this point. We just would engage them to see what that process would look like and the expenses associated with it.
Now, how did that number come about? Is that a Stantec number or a number from
The 5,000 number?
Yeah.
That is really a number I generated based on the cost of an appraisal, typical appraisal. We've done several of them, and then with a little bit of extra time for supplemental documents if I need them to present, a schematic layout or something. So I would anticipate being less than 5,000, but tried to be realistic in case we had some request of the landowner there.
Okay.
I don't see it going over 5,000 without coming back to you.
Okay, thank you. I'll make a motion to accept 7D.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? John?
No, I said aye.
Okay, gotcha.
We got it all.
Good deal.
Just in perfect
Good
harmony
deal.
with this.
It was. 7H, let's see here. I just wanted to pull it just to recognize the appointment, or the potential appointment here. Lisa Weifels for the Parks and Trails Commission. Dean and I had chatted about this earlier as we were the subcommittee. I think she's honestly going to be a great fit. She's someone who's been definitely paying attention to a lot of our meetings, either been on or I know watching afterwards, and always come to me with some really good questions. So I'm excited about her on the commission. And this would finally fill us back up now too. So we have a full commission, which I think will be great. So.
She didn't decide on this very quickly. She's another exceptional candidate for this, in my mind. She spent a lot of time and had to rearrange another commitment and stuff to be able to do this once a month.
Yep.
So,
And she did want to be
Very
here tonight,
impressive.
but I told her it wasn't a big deal because she had a prior commitment.
Yep.
But otherwise she would be here, so.
It's great to see people interested, and not interested only as spectators or as critics,
Right.
but also wanting to try to make things better. So thank you very much, Lisa. We appreciate it.
We need critical thinkers, though.
We do.
she's there.
Yep.
Constructive.
I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve agenda item 7H.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That one was just off enough where I could hear everyone, so.
Somebody went after me on social media for some of my abstains.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I abstained for very specific reasons.
Yeah.
And I never abstain on hard votes. Like, I'll vote on the hard stuff, but some of the stuff, like, if I haven't done enough research, or if I I could go either way, I'll abstain and let the majority make the rules, people that are more interested in me, but
I feel like you always explain it very well.
somebody didn't like that I abstained.
I think the last time I asked you why you abstained, you explained.
Yeah. So if I ever abstain, I'll explain it.
Sounds good. Planning business. Let's enjoy this for the one time, maybe all year, that it will be the case. None.
Sweet.
So we'll move on.
No public comment for that period?
No public comment
Because
for
we
that
don't
one.
have any business, at one point we had thought we might, so I think that was a layover on the agenda, so.
So on to unfinished business. We do have a public comment opportunity for item 9A, which is the work plan for city code updates.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Anyone who's joining us here in the session here can come up to the podium if you want to speak on items 9A or B. Otherwise, if you're joining us virtually, you can press star 9 or click reactions and raise your hand. Mayor, at this time, it does not look like anyone's raising their hand, so if you're
Okay.
comfortable, we could move forward with.
Go right ahead.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Over the last couple of months, we did a work session to review our goals for 2022 here, and we identified some city code updates that needed, that we wanted to review, whether or not we make formal changes to, and we wanted to at least review them at the council level. So on February 10th, we received some direction from council on the prioritization of those code updates and put together a work plan to address some of those items, trying to pair similar items together so we could get some clarity on what types of incentives we would look for, as well as what buffer zones would look like, just so we have a better understanding of what we would need to make changes for in the code. Rather than just going out and bringing back all sorts of ideas, we really wanted to focus that in. So we'll be looking at doing a few work sessions here in May and June to come up with those items, just to refine what we'd be actually looking for code updates. And then we do have a few items that we would be looking at just bringing forward some potential items for consideration, such as the front yard definition, the public notice policy, and then whether or not we'd want to go forward with some primary accessory structures, and then reviewing private driveways would be another area where we'd look at. So just getting some feedback from council if this seems like a good place to start, getting some clarification on these items so we can formalize what those next steps would be, and bring back formal code updates, and an outline of what those processes would look like if they need public hearings and whatnot.
Gotcha. Thank you. Any thoughts? Everyone's looking at the calendars.
Yeah.
Yes, and these dates are not set in stone. We do tentatively have on the schedule code enforcement priorities before the April 14th work session. I know we have a very long meeting scheduled on April 28th. So at this point, we'd be looking at May.
It
really.
won't be that long.
Yeah, John's running that one.
We have several items on it. We are going to try to put as many things that are non-controversial in consent, but just.
I'm just
there are a
teasing.
couple-
I'm totally joking.
Couple
I
items
know
that
it'll
we
be
want
long.
to get some feedback on. But in general, we want to make the most use of.
Just for you guys, I'm acting mayor that night, and we have like a humongous, they're giving me grief about the packet's gonna be humongous.
We tried to make it, because I planned this out quite a ways early that I was going to be gone, and I was hoping it would stay a light agenda just to be easy, and it ended up being the exact opposite of that.
It'll be okay.
Best-
Oh, you can handle it.
It'll be great. And so I think at this point, these are dates that we'd look at. If it does not work with council, we'd be looking at scheduling each one of these separately. So if there are dates that don't work, certainly let me know, and we'd be looking at scheduling these at upcoming meetings.
Sounds good. Thank you.
For what it's worth, those all work for me.
Yeah, me too.
They're all Thursdays, aren't they?
Yeah, they're just right
Before
before.
meetings.
They're all before meetings, and I tried to leave a little bit of room in Kevin's schedule to allow, in case we need any more water supply planning, making sure that we left some room in potentially the last meeting in April and May for if there are any other,
Perfect.
or first meeting in June.
Works for me.
I don't have any issue. I have a question on one of them, though.
Sure.
The one with the front yard setbacks,
Yes.
if we push that to the end of third quarter, does that have any impact on the one person that came in?
I believe as long as we're still working on it, we should be in.
He should be fine, he
We should
just
be
goes in
fine.
limbo?
Yes. So if that's something that we want to move forward, we certainly could. I just want to, I know with the design guidelines, just want to make sure that we have enough time to finish that project. And with Natalie's leave, I just want to make sure to be cognizant of using, since that's a somewhat seems a more minor update, I'd rather.
Yeah, I'm just curious
Utilize the in-house.
If we
Yeah.
decide no change. if that's
Yeah,
what
we could
comes
look
of it.
at, I can have her bring it, at least, if it's a recommendation for no change, we'd bring that forward sooner.
Well, I mean, I'm just wondering if we get to the end of the third quarter and we decide, well, we're not gonna change anything that has an impact on him,
Yeah.
would he be required to rectify his situation that year because we're going into a winter zone?
Likely, as long as they were working with us, we could be flexible. I can confirm that with the city attorney, but would it need to be coming forward earlier? We certainly could do that
Okay.
based on his recommendation.
All right.
Anything else? All right, I think you just want direction on that,
We just
right?
want a direction, make sure that we're going in the right direction and to look at those code updates and make sure we're moving in direction you want to.
Sounds good. Perfect. Okay, we'll go on to 9B. Actually, I said only public comment opportunity for 9A for some reason.
I mentioned it in.
Okay, perfect.
When I did my.
Thank you for correcting. I don't know why I have that.
No
So we'll
problem.
go right into 9B, which is Public Works Reorganization Phase 2A.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor and Council. In July of 2021, we discussed a reorganization within the Public Works Department. that aligned some different positions. We budgeted that in the 2022 budget and implemented phase 1 in December of, that's wrong, December of 2021. Sorry about that. I just realized that one, off on timing. So we implemented that. That phase 1 included the creation of a development, or, an operations superintendent and an operations manager, and then outlined a crew lead position and backfilling that position. So that's what phase 1 entailed. Phase 2 is what we're presenting tonight, which includes a permit technician for the Public Works Department. That really takes place because we have an increase in number of building permits that we're seeing, and making sure that we have dedicated staff towards that building permit position. And then it would maintain the administrative assistant and administration, which currently is doing all of our permits. So it just maintains a position with the addition of that permit technician. We are proposing an internal process for that hiring. And then in April, potentially April, I need to confirm with Kevin on that, but we'd be looking in April or May to look at doing our phase 2B, which would be creating that development superintendent and coming back to council for that. So with that, Kevin, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I'll just open it up to questions if there's any questions. It's just, when we project back, even 6 months ago, there's a lot of spinning plates in the organization, and so this is just a reflection of where we feel we can gain the most value. In dual role positions, we don't want to necessarily invest in someone for 6 months, so we're really trying to come not lesson learned, but just a reevaluation is the more we can kind of, if we get enough specific future job creation in one position, let's kind of gobble that up instead of training someone for 6 months and then that positions to somebody else. So we kind of capitalize on that training capacity. So that's really what the change was, is we got enough workload in this position, so instead of it being a joint position, we wanted to move it to a full position.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Any questions for Kevin? I think in terms of workload, there's no shortage for this very specifically, so.
Yes. Permits, we continue to see a record number of permits
Yeah.
coming in.
And it frees up staff for other process improvements and strategies and
Right.
organizational improvements. So if, if you're just always interacting, you can't really spend any energy planning, developing, and just setting us up for more future success. So it's an investment in that and unlocks other staff to do other things that aren't really getting done due to the the baseline demand.
Right. Makes sense.
Is the salary for this position taken into account in item 10B, that study? Is it going to be?
It is.
Do we factor it into our fees?
We do factor that into our fees when we complete
You factor in the fees for next year.
We factor it into the fees when we complete the Dolly report, which is the construction and development report. So we do make sure to cover that we are covering the costs with
Yeah, there's not,
the fees.
there's not like an escrow charge at this position that it gets rolled up into the whole.
Into the overall fee for those fees that we're seeing.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be, and we did budget for this position in the 2022 budget. So the position where it's come in and graded is what we would have anticipated when we put together the 2022 budget.
Anything else? I'll entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2022-20, amending the organizational structure of Public Works Department as presented.
So moved. Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
On to new business. We have another public comment opportunity for items 10A and 10B. And we'll go into that and then into 10A.
Anyone in the audience who wants to comment can come to the podium. Otherwise, anyone joining us virtually can press star 9 or click reactions and raise your hand. At this time, Mayor and Council, we do not have anyone raising hand for those two items, so we could go ahead and get started.
Sounds good. Let's go right into 10A.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor and Council. What we have in front of you tonight is a discussion that was brought up by Mayor McKee, as well as in discussions with Director of Public Safety Gottschalk, to see if council will want to create a residential picketing ordinance. It's something that we've seen throughout the metro area. And so I included a copy of the informational memo that the League of Minnesota Cities has on the topic. And so really it's just a question of whether or not we'd want to move forward with drafting an ordinance such as this.
Does everyone have a general understanding of what we're talking about with it? Otherwise, I'm sure Matt can probably give a better explanation and get into some of the details if anyone would like.
I'm fine with just going ahead and doing it.
Works for me. No?
Maybe he can just give a little bit of brief explanation.
Sure.
Sure. So there's been an uptick in, obviously, in public demonstrations, and we want to make sure that the public can demonstrate in a safe manner. What a lot of communities have encountered is, without the guidelines in place, that as some of the protests or especially in residential areas or the demonstrations were taking place, that there were some significant threats to the neighborhoods or other occupants as far as access and also comfort in their homes, even for people that are not directly affected by the actual actions taking place. So I think part of what we'd be looking to do is, one, stay consistent in how we apply it and publicly, so that the public knows how we would respond to those types of situations if they arise in our community. Stay consistent with the other communities around us as well. I don't think that we're not looking for a specific instance that we're trying to react to. I think we want to be in front of it and really help make sure that the appropriate protections are in place should we have public demonstrations, and that they're happening in the right place in a safe manner.
Cool, thank you.
All right, so
What would be considered residential?
Well, and that would be, we'd have to get into the specifics. I think that's kind of outlined in some of the draft ordinances, so that would really be kind of in the details. But I think for instance, I give an example of something that would be problematic in a residential area in Corcoran. Many of our residential neighborhoods only have one way in, one way out. And if you stack that with people, you're now preventing residents from being able to get to their homes just in their daily traversing, not to mention public safety concerns for access and things like that. If we foresee them and there's ways to mitigate and make areas safe, we would do that. So I think, generally we'd be looking at the zoning stuff, but it's really going to depend on which version of which ordinance we adopt. And I think we would try and follow our other city standards just to try and stay consistent.
And that's kind of the nice thing about the work behind this, is that there's a lot of other cities in our area and across the state that have done the exact same thing. So there's a lot we can more or less copy and tweak. I know Medina, Shoreview, Maplewood, Hugo, Blaine, Lake Elmo, Matamidi all either recently adopted it or at least were considering it. And that's just a recent little snapshot I saw somewhere online. So there's plenty of places to look at for the underlying code.
Very good.
So I think we're all
Perfect.
good with going forward on it.
Consensus
Yeah, perfect. All right, then we'll go on to 10B, which is the government fee analysis proposal.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The last item that we have on the agenda tonight, the city engaged in 2021 a study to look at governmental fees We would like to look at a secondary analysis specifically related to development and building. Recently, the city of Dayton completed the same studies that we're looking at doing. So we're just really looking for council approval to move forward with that so we can review our fees and make some recommendations on whether or not we need to make changes to our fees within the next several months, as we've anticipated. So we will be bringing forward we're in the process of reviewing that fee analysis from Abduak and Myers, and then we'll be bringing that forward as well for you all to review. So this will give us a secondary look to make sure that we're looking at those fees and understanding whether or not we think we may need changes.
Who was the first look?
We used Abduak and Myers, who is a,
So you reached out to Baker Tilly?
yes.
Okay.
Yes. Staff's recommending a secondary look just to ensure that we are encapsulating everything that we need to when we're thinking about fees.
Perfect. Did Dayton use both the same?
They
entities?
did.
They use Baker Tilly.
They use
Sure.
Baker
Sorry.
Tilly as well.
Okay.
And I, that was posted actually not too long ago, their meeting with that, and it was very thorough. It seemed like they really covered a lot, so maybe if anyone's interested, worth checking out. It was in the last month or so, the council meeting.
Perfect. Just helps us make sure that we're in line. There are some challenges with fees in general and making sure that we're capturing all of that. So this gives us a baseline to make sure that we're doing that.
I move to authorize staff to proceed.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Then we just have any staff reports. Don't really have much on there. I
We
don't
don't
think.
have any staff reports. We just have the upcoming city council schedule for
Good. Yeah.
the next.
Plenty
few
on there.
Next few months here. I would note that there is a Northeast District Design Guidelines open house next week on the 15th. It has been noticed, so if council would like to attend, you're certainly welcome
I'll be there.
to. We will have a draft plan for the Northeast District for folks to look at, and then just an opportunity for anyone interested to come and ask questions. So there was a lot of interest at the first open house that was in particular for landowners, so I anticipate that it will be well attended.
Yeah, the last one was packed.
And then on the 24th, we have a few different planning items. Just a
Looking good.
busy couple months here, it looks like.
I don't think
So.
it'll stop there. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Well, that's, I think, everything. Unless there's anything else anyone has, I will make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Yeah.